So the lore has moved forward in a major way, and some of the things we've assumed and taken for granted have been completely shattered. Games Workshop have pulled the rug right out from under us with the conclusion of the Dawn of Fire series, titled The Silent King. Everything has changed, and it turns out the ground we thought we were standing on is anything but solid. We're on shifting sands. So much of what we think we know about the Imperium, Guilliman, Xenos, and the Mechanicus themselves has to be reevaluated in light of these revelations. But I have to say, I am mad at myself for sleeping on this one for as long as I did, as The Silent King is probably one of the best Warhammer 40K books ever. I was hooked the entire time, and felt like it was not just a great read lore-wise, but it was actually a lot of fun too. And with that said, let's dive into the Grimdark. Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, Lord Regent of the Imperium, has several, serious scandals on his hands, and one is a controversy so profound that it would shake the Imperium to its core were word of it to get out. And that is one of the notes that this banger of a story starts off on. And yes, I have criticized the series in the past. Some of it drags quite a bit, but this book really is gold. The first we see of the 13th Son, the Primarch is charging full on at a foe that is obviously baiting him and his men, consisting of his custodes bodyguard, chopping down enemies like the unstoppable god of war that he is, charging straight into the enemy's guns at a heavily defended position in what would be a suicidal charge for anyone that wasn't an ultramarine with miles thick plot armor. But the custodes are a little bit ticked off, as he's the Lord Regent, literally the voice of the Emperor in so many ways, the de facto leader of mankind here in the physical universe. And he's putting himself at risk, in harm's way, by fighting in the front lines of an attack on an enemy that any of his subordinates could take out. The way it was written, it's like Colquhoun is chasing after a toddler who isn't going to hear anything as he's hellbent on doing what he's doing. And what he's doing is being a very naughty boy. The impetuous child aspect that typifies all Primarchs is leaned into very heavily here. There's nothing that can be said to Guilliman to make him see the very obvious sense that it's being made against what he's doing. Honestly, this actually made me like Guilliman a lot more than I normally have. He has a flaw, and isn't the total paragon of perfection. And he's kind of just a dumb jock, which is great and kind of fits. Battle for him is like being a kid unleashed in a toy store. He's running from one aisle to the next, in a blur, just playing with everything while his parents are trying to get him to stop because it's time to go. For the Imperium! For the Emperor! Roboute Guilliman, last son of the Emperor of mankind, held aloft the sword of his father in signal to his army. Throne aid us, he's going to do it. He's actually going to do it. Watch him. Stratarchus Tribune Maldavar Colquhoun voxed his command squad. Custodians Taquis and Lagus, Ondos and Bellion readied themselves to protect the hope of mankind from his own folly. The Primarch broke into a run through the forest of monumental stone columns. The custodians chased him. 300 space marines in myriad liveries came behind. The question of why Guilliman had to lead his troops into battle vexed Colquhoun greatly as he ran at the Primarch's heels. Guilliman slowed. His men followed suit. Colquhoun and his warriors remained behind him. Space Marine officers watched the Primarch with the avidity of hawks, and the entire line halted as one in the shadows of the rocks and the machines. They were hidden, mineral deposits rendering augur and auspex useless. Few but Colquhoun would have seen it, but Guilliman was tense. The reconquest was taking too long. Each minute wasted on a world was a chance lost to aid another planet. Every second saw 10,000 Imperial citizens dead somewhere else. Is that why he insists on taking these ridiculous risks, Colquhoun thought? Or is it simply because the Primarchs were flawed, one and all? The enemy occupied the far side of the road. A gate inset a few yards into a tunnel led into the complex Majoris. Firing slits had been seared through the rock by melta-cutters, and either side of it for dozens of yards. Charging that was suicide. Now, commanded Guilliman. The Space Marines erupted in a long, multicolored line from the stone forest, right into a rush of enemy fire. Onward! Onward in the name of the Emperor! Guilliman shouted. The Emperor's sword burst into dazzling flame. From the bunkers, heavy bolters started up. Those of Guilliman's men who carried heavier weapons stopped, braced themselves, and returned fire. I'm going now, Tribune, said Guilliman, You may follow me if you wish. The Primarch broke cover. Watch him, Colquhoun snarled into his closed squad vox. The custodians raced after, resplendent in the gold and blue of the armor of fate, twice the bulk of his warriors, and surrounded by the gleaming gold of Colquhoun's guardian squad. Guilliman was an obvious target. Gunfire intensified, all directed at him. But it's on the charge, and that's where he excels, of course. Guilliman is such a beast in combat that it is shocking to everyone around him, even those who have seen him fight before. There's a moment when you realize that Guilliman is sick of ruling. He's sick of politics. He's sick of being Imperial Regent. Endless reading, writing, talking to people. What he wants, what he needs to clear his head, is just to close with the enemy and crack some skulls. The ultramarines fire back, covering the structures above them in a cloud of bolter blasts. Word bearers topple, but there are more to fill their places. Many more. Guilliman roars a challenge to them. He condemns them to death. He condemns their master to a worse fate. He hurls himself at them. The Primarch is, of course, their greatest asset, Thiel realizes. Not because of his physical superiority, though that is hard to overestimate. It is because he is a Primarch, because he's Roboute Guilliman, because he is simply one of the greatest warriors in the Imperium. How many beings could measure favorably against him? Honestly, all 17 of his brothers? Not all 17. Nothing like all 17. 4 or 5 at best. At best. The word bearers on the upper structure see him coming. Their kill squad strength at least. The best part of a full company. At least a proportion of them are the vaunted Gal Vorbak elite. But they see him coming. And they know what that means. It doesn't matter what cosmic dementia has corrupted their minds and souls. It doesn't matter what eternal promises the dark gods are whispering in their ears. It doesn't matter what inflated courage the warp has poured into their veins along with madness. Guilliman of Ultramar is coming right at them. To kill them all. Even though they stand a chance of hurting him, they waste it. They balk. For a second, their twisted hearts know fear. Real fear. And then he has them. And then he's killing them. Ultimately, we see a guy who just really likes fighting. A bit at odds with the depictions of Guilliman in the past, but I'll take it. He was made for war, and he loves to go in and get his hands dirty. Good. When I read about Primarchs, what I want to see most is them getting down and dirty, spilling blood and doing the good work up close and personal. For the most part, but there are exceptions. I could read about Alfarius standing around pretending not to be Alfarius all day, even if he just sat on the porch talking with someone. But it is when Guilliman takes the massive plunge off a 200-foot drop, knowing that nobody else will be able to keep up with him, that I second-guessed if he is actually cracking mentally, and even wondered if he was intending to go out in a blaze of glory. I don't blame him. Bureaucracy sounds really, really boring to preside over. And imagine a million different worlds of red tape, paperwork, propaganda, superstition, history, etc. Yeah, the thought is not pleasing. So he jumps, and it was one of the best moments in the setting in a while. I laughed like, yep, total jock. Severed limbs and pieces of armor ablaze with uncanny fire bounced around the corridor. One of the enemy's heathen priests called upon his gods to aid him, but Guilliman was watched over by the Emperor himself, and the arrows of magic the Dark Apostle cast the Primarch's way fizzled to nothing. The priest died, his upper half obliterated by a strike from the hand of Dominion. "Get ahead of him," Colquhoun commanded. "For the love of Terra, get ahead of him." But Guilliman pushed the custodian aside and remained in front. "First line breached, all units advance," the Primarch commanded, and went ahead, seemingly not caring if Colquhoun was with him or not. The desire to fight, to slay, to forget, burned bright in him. Gun turrets set in the corridor walls tracked and opened fire. Once more, Guilliman's energy field danced with sparks. Colquhoun directed the fire of his squad at the emplacements, blasting several apart. He wanted the main prize for himself, and his goal was ahead. Colquhoun had his men follow. The complex shook. The locus of the seismic activity was nearby. A tectonic rupturer, the tech priest said. A mining tool overloaded and set to destroy. If they did not reach it soon, it would tear through the upper layers of the crust into the planet's core and wreak widespread destruction on Arion. Colquhoun understood the urgency, but Guilliman should not have been there. He should not lead himself. I have eyes on the primary target, Guilliman voxed. My lord, Colquhoun said. Stay back. You've done enough. We can deal with this more appropriately. The Primarch turned to him quickly, an almost feral, animalistic movement. How? An orbital strike will collapse the cavern and bury the machine, effectively armoring the rupture if it is not destroyed. We are closest. Other assets will not make it in time. And I say you risk yourself unnecessarily for the sake of enjoying combat. There are days when goals and desires align, Guilliman retorted. It's both necessary and pleasing to do this by my own hand. He looked over the edge. It was 200 feet down, a straight drop. My lord, no! And we see him go from that to his usual stoic, reserved, stiff, uptight self in a snap. As he does have to return to the Dawn of Fire and resume his duties. He is Lord Regent of the Imperium, after all. But the entire rest of the book has to be looked at through this lens, where we see Guilliman as the raging, childlike, obsessed, and flawed being that he is. Because all the lore revelations and occurrences in this story make a lot more sense when we realize that it is Roboute Guilliman's own nature that stands in his way most of all. Despite the fact he's come face to face, as far as empires go, with a cosmic horror that he can only begin to imagine in the form of the Necrons. And ironically, it is also that very nature of his that may just end up saving mankind from the space zombie robots. But damn, the Custodes sure are about to facepalm. And Colquhoun got totally messed up by that 200-foot gravity charge that Guilliman went on as he attacked the very concept of height itself. Reminds me of when Caligula, the Roman emperor, had his troops stab the ocean as he was personally at war with, and intended harm to, the god Neptune. Which tracks, as most people agree that Guilliman is deliberately made Romanesque, though I personally feel he's more Athenian. That's why he's all about the blue. But I digress. The Custodes, who are pretty much incapable of anything but absolute obedience, are at their wits' end as they're forced to serve a guy that they feel is a hulking child in a giant demigod super soldier Imperial Regent's body. It's one of the best dynamics I've seen between characters in quite a while in Warhammer 40K, and I love it. I knew that if Games Workshop pulled it off in just the right way, they could bring me back around to having some sort of positive feelings about Guilliman, and well, this is it. But this whole charging, rampant toddler thing is just the beginning. It's like the preamble. It's setting the stage for the way this book is going to go. For of course, when you come up against the Silent King, and you're only 10,000 years old, you're definitely going to come across as a child. I don't care who you are. Zarek has been around at least 6,500 times as long as Guilliman. Roboute is a flash in the pan compared to the Tsar of the Stars. Now when Guilliman returns to his duties and starts holding court again, the Mechanicus come before him with a problem, and they kind of shuffle their feet a bit and wring their hands. As one tech adept that escaped a massive Necron attack in the Pariah Nexus is really all that came back to report. And Guilliman is pissed that Mars did not send the actual Fabricator General, or at least a very high-ranking representative of his. When we learn that the Fabricator General has been replaced, and his successor is busy with the transitional duties. All, of course, to keep Mars up and running smoothly so that it may help to support the Imperium and Lord Guilliman. Of course. Guilliman has had enough of this guy, who totally tries being passive-aggressive and gaslighting the Primarch before he even finds out the truth of it all. And the truth does indeed come out. The Mechanicus has been hiding the most massive news in probably the entire galaxy from the Primarch. They've been engaged in an ongoing war against the Necrons, who have been waking up at unprecedented rates, and they have been 100% keeping this from the Imperium at large, especially from Guilliman, which is why he's so pissed. The Mechanicus are making power moves in the background, and they feel like they can play Guilliman, and it's because they feel like he's childish and can be easily manipulated. They aren't exactly wrong, but sure they must know he's deeper than that. Guilliman comes to realize that they were never going to tell him, and just keep plundering Necron tombs, studying and excavating Blackstone, and leveling up and studying extremely heretically Necron tech. And now they may have poked a bear that just can't be unpoked, and it is staring at humanity as a whole, not just the Mechanicus, as its next meal. So what does Guilliman do? He seeks counsel with an Eldari Farseer, Ilyan Nastase, named after the character from 1st edition, Rogue Trader, who was a half-human, half-Eldar ultramarine. Yeah, Rogue Trader was awesome like that. And so Guilliman, when not knowing what course to take, seeks the advice of an alien? A Xenos, non-human piece of space filth? That's pure heresy, you say. And yes, you're right. So what does he tell the Farseer? That the Necrons are coming. But the Farseer already knew that. He was sent as an envoy of Eldred Ulthrin himself, and he knew that Guilliman was going to say the Necrons before he even did. It is funny, but Nastase is super xenophobic against humans himself, and thinks we smell so bad he has to use some super toxic balm under his nostrils just to not smell us. I love little details like that. They really bring out the douchiness in the Eldar, which is actually one of their funnest qualities, if not a good positive trait to have. They're the one Xenos race that looks enough like us that it's easy to forget that they're aliens. But Nastase lives in a secret quarters on the Dawn of Fire, as Guilliman needs his counsel but knows all the other humans would just kill him on sight for being the filthy space trash he is. Okay, you know I'm just kidding, right? Just playing up the Imperial angle. In real life, I'm half Eldar myself. But yeah, the Farseer lets Guilliman know that he must live, as the fate of the entire galaxy is somehow tied to his own fate. So the Eldar would need him to survive to ensure their own race survives. What does Guilliman do? He goes on a rant about how noble the Eldar are and how he wishes they didn't live in such trying times, as the Imperium and the Eldar could both enjoy the help of the other more if they could just have enough space to make a lasting peace between them, which would be mutually beneficial. So what? He thinks the Eldar are great to have around now? Xenos? That's heresy. Fucking space hippies. I know full well that the purpose of your cast is to ensure the survival of the Asuryani Eldari. I would that they did survive, for you are a noble people, and if we were to have the time and space without these endless wars, I am sure some accord could be met between our species. So who says something like that? An Eldar simp? A lonely boy wanting to reconnect with the Vrain? Either way, a total heretic. But that's no surprise, as we also learn that at this point, few trust Guilliman. The custodes are already seeing that he's an impetuous bastard who will lead them all into a civil war if they aren't careful. I can see the wheels turning in their heads, sharpening their misericordia. The Mechanicum doesn't trust him, the High Lords don't trust him, and it is all because they see him not as an heir, but as a usurper, as an empire builder who will turn the Imperium of Man into one big ultramar. And they aren't wrong to be afraid of that. Guilliman is rash and single-minded sometimes. Lion didn't trust him, so that tells me he isn't as altruistic as he puts off. If Guilliman has a hidden agenda, and if he wants to take the Imperium for his own, being the Emperor in name as well as representing him physically in the universe, as he's taken it upon himself to do, well, he has the means to do it. And it would indeed plunge the Imperium of Man into another needless and bloody civil war. Remember earlier when I compared Guilliman to Caligula? Well, he does also have a bit of Pericles in him as well, does he not? Guilliman is the ultimate statesman, so he must see this distrust, and he does. But what he does with it and what he makes of it are not what the other people, players, and organizations are thinking. We know that. But it is fun to see the intrigue at court aspect of him, being mistrusted so. Honestly, he's one of the only trustworthy people in the setting, despite being quite a baby Huey. But we do see that Belisarius Cawl himself is a bit hesitant to trust G-Man fully, as he's gone behind Guilliman's back and made Primarchs from all 20 legions gene seed. All 20. That means the missing 2nd and 11th, in my opinion Rubenek and Malibran respectively, but it also means the Traitor Legion's gene seed is being used to make Primaris, which is super interesting. I wonder how the Thousand Sons Primaris are working out. Guilliman's whole rule is a house of cards, and it could come crashing down at any moment. And we learned that is exactly what happened in his absence when he was in stasis, or that is what is thought to have happened. And yeah, it turns out the other Primarchs kept on Primarching as he was entombed, and they didn't agree on anything, and tore the already destroyed Imperium apart. Without the Lord Commander, i.e. Guilliman, the other Primarchs cast humanity and their father's vision into ruination. Each one trying to do what they thought was right, most likely, and each one having a different vision for that. Despite Guilliman being the impetuous child, despite his hot-headedness and love of fighting, he's got a charisma, a quality about him that makes him a natural-born leader, even among his brothers. Remember when I mentioned Pericles earlier? We'll have to see just what it is that the Primarchs did in the wake of the Horus Heresy when the Scouring comes out, but it was nice to get some foreshadowing. Dorn fans are going to be clutching their pearls when they find out how bad he ruined everything. That's my prediction, and I'm sticking to that. But the Silent King and Guilliman do have a conversation in this book, and it is pretty intense if I'm being honest. I mean, the ramifications are insane. And before going into all that, I am just going to say, we're just their crop to be harvested when the time is right in their eyes. My glorious overlord, God Emperor of mankind, save us. For this is truly cosmic horror on an unprecedented, massive scale. So the book goes on where Guilliman is now checking on the Necron threat himself, as the Mechanicus may have lied to him, but that doesn't mean the threat to humanity isn't real. And at a certain point he destroys some Necron pylon system that sets off the local space Tomb Kings, and their ships show up. En masse, one after the other. And then one shows up that is just absolutely ginormous. And of course, it's the Silent King himself. A figure pretty much just thought to have been legend or myth. Sort of similar to Guilliman in that regard. Just 6,500 times older. And the Necrons open communications with the Dawn of Fire, forcibly, in a techno-rapey sort of way, disabling systems and whatnot like creepy undead robots would. The Silent King appears on the hololith, and he's huge, just staring down at Guilliman, head crowned with gnarly blades, his eyes glowing green. The meeting we've all wanted to see for years between the Imperium and the foul Necrons. The Silent King's whole presence is commanding. He's got his two Triarchs next to him on either side, standing on a black stone dais. He's twice the height of them, and they're not small.
Hear now this call to parley lesser beings, and be glad of my liege's mercy. I am Hipatra, the Radiant, Triarch of the Necrons, and servant of Zarek, the Silent King.
Hipatra gestured to the greater Necron between him and his companion.
Zarek is mighty. Zarek is eternal. Zarek is the breaker of gods and reshaper of worlds. Hear his name and tremble, for his coming presages your doom. Heed him, and you shall be permitted to live as rightful slaves of the Necrons. Heed him not, and all shall perish.
Guilliman stepped forward on his grav stage. I am Roboute Guilliman, 13th Primarch. I shall hear you.
Then you are wise, Roboute Guilliman. Do you speak for your species?
I am regent of the Imperium of mankind. I speak for my people. We who rule this galaxy. Hipatra laughed. His face did not move, could not, and the sound was all the more grotesque for it.
We know of your Imperium. You are primitives who squat upon our worlds and plunder our resources. Your realm is nothing compared to the majesty of the Necron Star Empire. You are weak and growing weaker. Your technology is primitive. We see signs of your kind everywhere, yet the worlds you occupy are few in this area. You are a race who has fallen and refused to acknowledge it. Let it be known that at your peak, you would have still been nothing to us. Be grateful the Silent King is wise and just, or he would have destroyed you immediately without this offer of mercy.
Then I assume you have not come here to surrender.
Do not mock us, human.
State your terms, then.
Hear this. Zarek, the lord of all the Necron race, demands the following. You trespass in the sovereign territories of the Nihilic dynasty, who owe fealty to us. Depart this place immediately. No further attempt to penetrate the contra-empirical nexus shall be made. Any ship or colony found within its bounds shall be destroyed. Return, and your vessels and your warriors shall be destroyed.
What of the people who inhabited worlds in this sector?
They are our property. They shall remain so in recompense for your actions. The remainder will be permitted to live.
As allies, then, of the great and powerful Necron people?
We have no need of allies.
As friends, then, said Guilliman.
Neither friends nor allies. but supplicants. Your populations and your materials shall be tithed. Go now, and we shall make arrangements to receive an embassy from you, at a time to be determined, with which we shall negotiate the surrender and subjugation of the Imperium of Man to the Necron Star Empire.
A sense of palpable outrage settled in the chamber. No person spoke. Yeah, because they just got word that the Imperium of Man is terminally ill and the doctor taking care of its name is Kevorkian. The surrender and subjugation of the Imperium of Man to the Necron Star Empire? That's an insane ask. That isn't even an ask. Sarek is telling, or rather Hippolyta is on his behalf, as the Triarchs do for the Silent King. But still, the word is coming down, right from the main Tin Man of all, that it is just a matter of time and we'll be tithing them both in people and materials. We know what they're going to do with the people, should we comply. The only thing that will save us from the Necrons is possibly a temporary alliance with them if the Tyranid threat can't be fully contained by either side. I mean, the Silent King rolled up with his fleet and immediately sets up a border, says, "Don't violate this. And we await your ambassador for negotiating your absolute and total surrender." Whoa. And think of the astronomical chances that the first time the Silent King calls humans on the phone, he gets right through to Guilliman? The situation is much, much, much worse than Guilliman even possibly imagined. I could see the gears turning in his brain, and see him calling Abaddon up and having a similar chat with him as Eldred Ulthrin and Astrobale Vecht had in Emperor text-to-speech. What a literal Imperium-ending doom on the horizon, like a train slowly getting closer, and we're tied to the tracks. Cawl makes the point of explaining multiple times in this book that the Necrons killed their gods, and the gods of other races, and are extremely powerful, on a scale that is unimaginable to most. But the conversation continues, and the Necrons flex a bit before Guilliman calls their bluff and whips his nuts right out and throws them on the table. And yes, according to his math, they're bluffing, but then again, he took Common Core, so... "We have fought and beaten many species who sought to dominate us," said Guilliman. "They were destroyed.
In the past, our astromancers have reconstructed the quantum trails of your existence. Your history is known better to us than it is to you. You were a species far past its peak of power. You cannot even end your petty civil war after 10,000 years. You are prey to the non-entities of the warp, and you have never, ever faced the likes of us, the true masters of this galaxy. Witness."
100 small images sprang up around the Silent King. They showed war. Only war. A small fatal interaction between a terrified guardsman and a Necron warrior. A flight of skimming Centauroloid Necrons blazing fire. Ships ablaze from stem to stern. Tall gangling androids materializing aboard command decks. Tanks detonating, and entire fleets under heavy attack. And more. So many images, all of defeat and despair.
"This is the fleet you call Calades,"
said Hippolyta.
"See your defeats. They are beaten.
"But they live," said Guilliman.
It is in our power to snuff them out, as we shall snuff you out."
Guilliman smiled coldly. "Yet you have not. They've penetrated this most important realm of yours, and they still fight. You bring evidence of your own limitations and present it as mercy. We shall not surrender, not now nor ever. Humanity has but one master, and one master alone. He is the Emperor, and he sits eternally upon his golden throne."
10,000 years is not an eternity. Your master is an abhorrent mutant, and you are his construct. You snarl at the face of true power, animal. The Silent King asks again, so merciful is he, will you surrender?
"Never, do you hear?" Guilliman said. He moved forward and the armor of fate growled as if it shared his displeasure. "Humanity is the master of the stars. Your time has passed." The 3 Necron lords looked down upon the Primarch. The giant king said nothing, did not move, but the single orbs of his courtier's eyes flashed. They both stiffened into immobility for a second.
"Very well,"
said Hippolyta.
"Hear the word of the Silent King. Examples of your kind will be maintained in the royal menagerie for posterity. The rest of you shall be exterminated.
The hololith went out. Despite the efforts of the technicians and tech priests, the device remained inactive. They made their move, and in doing so, exposed their leader, said Guilliman. Colquhoun's eyes narrowed. You cannot mean to engage. No, we are hopelessly outnumbered, said Guilliman. We shall begin a fighting withdrawal. We need to keep the Necrons occupied long enough that Cawl may complete his task, but we shall not risk the fleet. Guilliman regarded a screen where an image of the enemy flagship was displayed. We know who their ruler is. We know how to find him. One day, we shall kill him, and the Necron threat will end. Today is not that day. Our objectives are achieved. They are distracted. Cawl will succeed. Give the order to retreat. Holy shit, Guilliman is a boss. His impetuous nature isn't going to be quelled by threats from an aluminum lich. Alumini lich in England, I suppose. He might be an incel, but he's proving he's got the biggest balls there. Then again, I think maybe what the Silent King is so mad about is the same thing Cetra is. His junk is gone now, and that's not how he imagined immortality. Guilliman's nature was showcased in this book, but it was all a fake-out in a way. The same fake-out the Silent King fell for himself in the story. We thought his bumbling nature was causing problems, rippling throughout the Imperium, and it was painted that way a bit. But he's actually the problem solver, not the problem. He's baited the Silent King into overplaying his hand, because the Silent King and the Necrons as a whole view the humans and Guilliman as children, galactically childlike. But Guilliman just totally pulled a judo move and used the Necrons' momentum and force against them. I'm a huge Necron fan, and will always love undead of any kind, even if they're just Tomb Kings of Kemrian space. That's good enough for me. They literally don't need to be anything more than that to be absolutely awesome. But I must admit that I did love seeing the Imperium get one over on them. Guilliman has a huge problem to deal with, but he's got a plan to do it, and he knows that the Necrons are mostly dormant, which may not last. But the Silent King, well, he just topped the hit list of the Master of Mankind's son, the Lord Regent of the Imperium. That's insane! Guilliman is a strike while the iron is hot kind of guy, so I feel like this could kick off an absolutely fun, galaxy-consuming war. They really could use to crank up the war in Warhammer. Come to think of it, they could crank up the hammers too. But I totally walked away from this story thinking to myself, I absolutely love Roboute Guilliman, and I have not really felt that way since before the Matt Ward era. I'm thoroughly impressed. This is truly good stuff here. And I can't imagine this is really the last book in the series, though it does bring us right up to Dark Imperium, so I guess I'm just in denial. For a series I didn't think too much of at first, this really ended on a banger. The Silent King drops so many hammers, it isn't funny. Just revelation after revelation, intrigue like crazy, and that insane conversation between the Necrons and Guilliman. I say screw it, we need to take these uppity scrap heap robo-liches out behind the tool shed and give them what for. Oh my god, I am so disappointed in myself. One good book and my enmity for the G-Man is completely dissolved. I wonder how long this will last. It's completely foreign territory. But yes, in so many ways in this one book, even though it is set slightly before the most current events in the timeline, they really moved the lore forward in some super fun ways, and much more extreme than I thought they would. The board is set for an absolutely huge war. In the end, Guilliman met Zarek, and was like, whatever, we got this. It'll be a pain, but that's what we do. I'm going to go paint the Guilliman that's been sitting on my shelf since Imperium magazine's final issues came out. Emperor of Mankind, who have I become?